Good evening, everyone. So good to see so many of you here. How you feeling tonight? All right. It is wonderful to have you here. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Dr. Tamika Hobbs, and I am the regional manager here at the African American Research Library and Cultural Center. Yes. And we actually have the luxury this evening of having our founder in the building, Sam Morrison. Where are you, Sam? Say hello to everyone. There he is. This wonderful place would not be possible without him. We continue to be a standard bearer. I had a group here today from Gainesville. They want to build one of these in their community, and they came to check us out. So they took a lot of inspiration from what you've done for this community. So thank you, Mr. Morrison. Well, here at AARLCC, as we call it affectionately, we are dedicated to bringing all of you the best programming that we could possibly find. And we've had a pretty outstanding year this year. So far, we've been able to bring syndicated radio host, actor, and comedian Ricky Smiley here to AARLCC. Anybody who was here for that show? Yes. It ended up being a therapy session. It was really good. It was really good. We have also had the privilege of hosting Monique Rodriguez, who is the founder and CEO of Mael Organics. Anybody here for that one? Yes. Incredible business leader who was right here on this stage with us. And tonight, we will continue with this practice of bringing celebrity authors here to this community. I have to let you know that it would not be possible without our partners, Pyramid Books. They are our local, yes, Akbar in the back. Thank you so much for your continued partnership here at AARLCC. We're very proud to be working with you. They have been selling books for the last 30 years, and we continue to be in partnership with them. So thank you so much for your support this evening. I would be absolutely remiss if I did not also thank the friends of AARLCC. Raise your hand if you're a friend of AARLCC. Thank you so much for all that you do to support us here through your fundraising and your organizing and your volunteerism. You make everything that happens here possible, and you make it better. So thanks to all of you for what you do. Tonight we have a very special person to thank. All of this came about because of one individual and one phone call. I want to thank Don Wiggins. Many of you know him with the Wiggins Agency, but he is currently the president of our new South Florida station. I remember WDFL, Channel 18. Download the app. Yes, you're going to owe me for that one. That was an extra shout out. We love you, Don. Thank you so much for everything. All right, I am so excited for our guest this evening. It is no exaggeration to call her a history maker and a trailblazer. If you don't know the history, I'll just give you a few facts. She was the first Black woman to hold the crown as Miss Ohio. How many in here from Ohio? I met a few people. Yes, Ohio represent. She was the first African-American woman to appear on television as a sportscaster. How many of you remember her on NFL Today? Yes. She is one of the most recognized photographed women of her era. She was on the cover and within the pages of Ebony and Jet countless times. We associate her with glamour, but she's here to tell you this evening that she's just plain old Jayne. But before I bring her out, I like to indulge you all a little bit in a historical throwback. We're going to watch some video clips of Jayne.
When Jayne Kennedy was breaking glass ceilings, no one paid attention, really. All anyone could say was, it's about time.
It's about time.
It's about time that there was a first African-American woman to win Miss Ohio USA title in 1970. It was about time that there was a woman to host a sports show. It was about time that a woman, a Black woman, who was so stunningly beautiful, would adorn the covers of many major magazines. And she did it with class. All the TV shows, movies, and commercials. And don't forget the NAACP Image Award for a great performance in the classic film, Body and Soul. Winning an Emmy Award for her work hosting the 1982 Rose Bowl. Standing up for what she believed in, fighting the good fight for those who are powerless to fight for themselves. It's about time that she received the National Sports Media Association's Roone Aldridge Award for Innovation. And it's about time that we honor her for breaking racial barriers and forging a way for many women to follow in her footsteps. It's about damn time.
Salute.
Jayne Kennedy.
Salute.
Everyone, please join me in welcoming to our stage here at AARLCC, Miss Jayne Kennedy.
How you doing? Wow to you as well.
All right, Mr. Wiggins, don't start now. Well, Ms. Kennedy, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the African American Research Library and Cultural Center.
Thank you.
It is such a treat to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to be with us. How are you this evening?
I'm doing really well. The city has been good to me.
Good.
So I'm having a great time.
We are known for our hospitality here, so it's wonderful to have you. I just want to start off by not only thanking you for agreeing to be here with us at AARLCC, but I want to thank you for the gift of this book, Plain Jane. It is not an easy thing to write a memoir, to go inside, to go back through the memory banks, and to pull out everything that you pulled out. I think it's remarkable because it's an incredibly vulnerable thing to do, and you've really done that. You have given it all. You have shown us the highs and the lows, and in doing that, you have given us the gift of your wisdom. So I just want to start off by thanking you for having the foresight and the bravery to do something. I do think it's something that is incredibly brave. But with that, I do want to ask you why you were motivated to write your memoir at this time. Why was this the right moment for you?
I started writing Plain Jane in the year 2000, and it's been a 25-year journey. And so, when people ask me, why did I decide to do it now? It's really, why did I decide to do it 25 years ago? But it was important to me to talk about, in my own words, my life experiences, because there had been so many misconceptions in the now nascent internet. But back then, there were only 3 television stations. So, there's a big difference between what we had back then and what we have now. And I just wanted to make sure that people knew who my story was from my own words. And now with the blessings of Audible, you can hear it in my own voice, which is amazing to me. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't expect the Audible experience to be so spiritual, but I had never read the book out loud in its entirety. I had done, I had so many different envisions of what the book was going to be. And then now I get to the point where I'm actually reading every word. And it was very emotional. It was heartbreaking. It was full of joy. It taught me a lot that I hadn't even realized when I wrote the book. So, I think that if you have the opportunity to get the Audible version, then you'll hear my voice telling my words. And I think that that's really important. And at this particular time is because I wanted to make sure that I had this done, that I had a legacy that I could pass on to my daughters.
And I did read in your memoir that you also thought it important to wait until your children were of age. As correct?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I wanted to be honest in my words, and I wanted to make sure that I told things that people had said were wrong. I wanted to correct many of the things in my career, and I wanted to let people know who I was at my core. And for me to have this done, and my daughters, my 4 amazing daughters, Copper is with me tonight. She's backstage. Copper Joy is my right hand. And then I have Cheyenne, who is my stepdaughter, but she's as much my daughter as she is her mother's daughter. And her mother and I have the most amazing extended blended family relation. So that is truly a blessing. And then I have Zaire, my baby girl, and Savannah, who is my firstborn. And I wanted to make sure they knew who I was. And as a matter of fact, I could say that I don't really know why I did this in terms of making them know me, because they know me better than I know myself. But I just wanted to make sure that the legacy carried on so that they could tell their grandchildren and their great grandchildren. Because I start this book by talking about my great great grandparents. So that was important to me.
Well, I don't know if you are psychic, but that was exactly my next question. Because you do, this book is really, it begins and ends with family.
Yes,
And
it does.
what I learned is that is incredibly important to you. And while we associate you with Ohio and Hollywood, I was very interested to learn that you got real Southern roots. You are
Amen.
out of South Carolina and Virginia. You have an amazing family. You tell an amazing story about them. You really bring them to life. And I have to say, out of everybody that you write about, it was your father who both literally and figuratively looms large over your pages. I wanted you to talk with us a little bit about your relationship with your father. They called him Big Blue, but his real name was Herbert Harrison Sr.
Yes.
Talk to us about your father and your relationship with him.
My father was a great man. He passed away 12 years ago, and he meant the world to me. But I cannot say that without saying that it was because of my mother. My mother and my father were the most amazing people together, and they raised 6 children. I was born in Washington, D.C. With my older sister was born before me, and they decided when I was 9 months old to move to Cleveland. And it was in Cleveland that my family actually came into shape. I had 3 other sisters that were born after me, and then my one brother who ended up playing for Marquette University. He's a 6'9" basketball player. And unfortunately, just 6 years ago, he had a horrible accident. And one of those roller chairs that, you have in a desk in an office at your desk, and it has the wheels underneath. And he went to stand up and he fell forward and he broke his neck, and he's paralyzed for life now. So there's so many reasons that I want this story being told, and I sent him the sample of the link for the Audible version, and he was ecstatic. He was so ecstatic. I went to visit my mom, and she said, you wrote this, Jayne? And she has dementia. She said, you wrote all of these words? And she started thumbing through the pages, and she said, my baby girl wrote all of this? And it really set in. And then she started talking as if she had never had dementia. And it went on for 20 minutes. And she was talking about the importance of life, the relevance of family, how important it is that we stay in touch, and why people should treat each other the way that they should be treated and not like they are today. I didn't even know that she knew what was going on in the world today. And my daughter and I, Zaire was recording it. And we were just looking at each other because my mom was so lucid at that time. And she was so clear. And it was something that God had touched her with to let her know that this was an important moment for her. And my father is just as important to me. My father, his mother died when he was 10 years old. And I talk about it in the book, how difficult it was. He had a family of 10 children, and he was only 10. His mother was shot 3 times in the back of the neck, and she died in his arms. And when I went home to interview my dad about the book, I told him I was writing this story, and I was asking him a lot of questions. And when he told me about the story about how his mother died in his arms, I asked him, I said, why have you never told me this story before? And he said, because it hurts too much. He had to give up school. He had to raise his siblings. His father was white. His mother was black. They were not allowed to marry in South Carolina. And just after his mother passed away, he got sick. And his Virginia family came to take him away. So my father was the only one to raise his 6 sisters. And I can't think of a stronger man than my father. And I go to visit him at his gravesite. And I talk about how I'm writing the book. And one day it was fall, in October, a beautiful day, and my favorite time of the year. And I was sitting there, and the wind was blowing through my hair. I had taken coffee. I always pour a little coffee on the gravesite because he loved his coffee. And and then we talk, and I talk and I talk and I talk. I'm thinking we're talking, but I'm talking. And then, I'm resting and the sun is blowing. The sun is in my face. The wind is blowing and I'm just enjoying the day. And then I hear this booming voice, Jayne, why the hell are you still sitting there? I told you everything that you needed to do to succeed in life. You just need to do it. Just do it. And I kept thinking Nike, right? And I said, but he said, just do it. And I heard it so loud and clear. I heard it so loud and clear. It touched my heart. And I promised him that I would finish this book if it was the last thing I did. And I did it because he was always proud of me. He always wanted to see his little Janie Brent because I represented his mother. His mother was named Jayne. He named me after my grandmother. And legacy, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the most important reason that I've written Plain Jane. All the other stuff that I just said, legacy is the key. Legacy is the key. We cannot forget that.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. And all of that comes through his strength, his protection, the role that he played as a provider for his siblings, the protective nature that he had towards you and your sisters before your brother came along. Sounded like it was really hard to date. I remember thumbing through the pages, and even after you were engaged, he wouldn't let you go on a date with your fiance at the time, Jayne Kennedy.
I think that one day, I'm so sorry. One day, I lived in my father's house. I had to have his permission, because it wasn't that time. Well, we weren't that kind of family. And we were mostly in a white neighborhood. Only a few streets had black families on them. And my father was the man of the house. And my mother was the woman of all of us, even my father. But, it was just important to know that he was there to support all of us. And it was an incredible experience to be in our household. I never feared anything.
And that actually goes into my next question, because truly you've given some great testimony about what wonderful people your parents were. How old is your mother now?
94.
94.
She'll be 95 in November.
Beautiful. But you can tell that they've poured so much into you and your siblings. And it really struck me as you were writing about yourself as a young girl, but consistently throughout your life, and you've had an amazing career, that you just were self-determined. You were never really one to do what people told you to do what people expected you to do. You consistently, as you write in your memoir, wanted to chart your own course. Where did that come from in you? Have you always recognized that within yourself?
Well, in the very first opening page of the book, it talks about my Aunt Pearl, my mother's sister, telling me a story when I called her to interview her for her comments on the book. And she said, Jayne, you were only 4 years old and you would run around the yard telling everybody you were going to go up and be a Hollywood movie star. And she said you had these rhinestone glasses with these cat-eyed rhinestone glasses on the end. And she said you had shorts that had palm trees on them. Now, how did I know that palm trees meant California or Hollywood? But that was me, she said, and I would prance around the yard telling everybody I was going to be a Hollywood star. And we only had a little black and white TV. I didn't really know what a Hollywood star was, but this was important to her. And she said, Grandma said, don't anybody mess with Jayne. If she wants to be a Hollywood star, Fancy Prancy will grow up to be a Hollywood star. Fancy Prancy, that's my grandma.
So it was in you from a young age?
It was in me from a young age. I didn't know it because I did all kinds of things in between. Sports was my dream, and this was pre-Title IX, so there were no opportunities for females to compete in any kind of sport. So it was important to me that I get involved in anything that was near sports. And when I was in 5th grade, I competed in the Junior Olympics in the standing broad jump. And I did not win. I faulted on all 3 jumps. But and when I get to junior high, well, you can't play any sports. So, I became a cheerleader. And then I became captain of the cheerleaders. And I wanted to go anywhere there was sports. And the only thing I could not do was track and field because they did not have women competing in track and field. But I figured if I become the statistician, I could get on the bus. So I became the statistician. But I was always the person that, if I had a dream, I'd just figure out a way to do it. And I never let no stand in my way.
And that's very evident when we talk about your eventual move to California. And it just seems so charmed. I mean, we talked today about Black Girl Magic, but you had something working on your behalf, it seems. You had a chance to work with some real Hollywood greats. I wonder if you tell the audience about some of your favorite celebrities that you've had an opportunity to work with.
Well, I will start with my number 1 favorite celebrity, and that would be the great Muhammad Ali.
And one of his former wives is in the audience with us.
Kalila Ali is in the audience. Kalila has been my sister since I first met her in 1975. And we have stayed friends forever. We may have periods of time where we don't see each other, some long periods of time, but we're always there for each other. And I think that that's great. But when I first met Ali, I knew Yus in 75, but I met Ali in 73. And it was at a convention in Los Angeles for business people in the industry. And my ex-husband Leon and I were going through the convention center, and we heard that someone say, Ali is upstairs giving a press conference. So we both said, now these are 2 people that jumped a fence, broke into the school, and went to see Ali in the first closed circuit television broadcast. So yes, I was going to go see Ali. So we get up the stairs, 2nd floor, and we get there, and there's reporters on the trying to get into the room, but there were so many, they were just pushing out into the hallways. So Leon and I said, well, we got to get in, we got to see him. So we pushing through the crowd, and finally, and I had been on the Dean Martin show as a Ding-a-ling sister. But that was one of my first jobs in Hollywood. So, so I walk into the room, and the first thing I hear, Muhammad says, "There's that Ding-a-ling girl." And he said, "Come on up here and sit on the date." He was sitting on a dresser, having hanging court. So anyway, he said, "Come and sit with me on the dresser." Went up there, sat with him, and we've been friends ever since, And so many of the times that I've been in his existence and he's been in my existence, we have had a commonality that just carried over that I didn't understand. But it was just this friendship that was just amazing. And I just really respected that. And he respected that I respected that. There are many stories in the book. There's an entire chapter on, it's called Muhammad and Me. And if you see, no, it's called Ali and Me. Let me make it poetic. It's called Ali and Me. And anyway, we talked about so many things in the chapter, but the thing that really resonates with me is that one time I came to Los Angeles. There were so many. I don't want to tell you all of them because they're all going through my mind right now. But at one of the last times I saw him, I had come to Los Angeles and I was flying by myself and I didn't have any checked baggage. And so I came out on the baggage on the curbside at the airport at LAX. And there's Muhammad sitting on the top of a Rolls Royce. And it's the only time in all those years that I'd ever seen him alone. No bodyguards, nobody. And so I walk over to him. I said, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, I'm okay." And this is a man who teases all the time. And you know it. And so I said, "Well, do you need anything?" He said, "No." No conversation, just yeah, no. And I said, "Well, this is kind of strange. Where are your people?" He said, "I'm here by myself." I said, "Well, is there anything you can do? Anything I can do?" He said, "Jayne," I said, "No." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go on, get my, go to my go to my car." And of all the memories that I have of him, it's that moment. Because I said, this is a man that the world loves. And I remember him sitting on top of this Rolls Royce, whether it was sitting at Deer Lake, and I was sitting with him on a pile of logs, whether it was sitting ringside at his fight at the Thriller in Manila. The greatest one was seeing him sitting on top of that Rolls Royce, holding court to just a few people, making people happy.
Powerful memory. Powerful memory.
Yes.
Anyone else from your time? I was really impressed that, even before you got to Hollywood, Smokey Robinson was very close friends with your ex-husband. He was at your wedding, yes?
Yes, he not a wedding guest. He was in the wedding party.
Okay,
He was best man.
So there's just a who's who as we go through the book of
There
all these
is.
people
There
that
is.
you know.
Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. used to invite us to his home because, like Hollywood's very communal. And if you had the opportunity to get to know someone, it would enhance your opportunities to get a job. It was never really about going to auditions. It was always about who you knew and how do you get to them. And so, Sammy would invite us and we go with studio heads. We're not talking about casting directors right now. We're talking about the head of the studio. It's sitting right next to you watching the Friday night movie. And we would go on Sundays for breakfast dinner. But Sammy Davis made sure that we got to know people in Hollywood. Marla Gibbs made sure that I got to know people in Hollywood. Marla Gibbs fought for me for a job on a show where they were casting on 227. They were casting a role that the female was supposed to be in love with sports. And she said, "Why don't we use Jayne Kennedy?" And they said, no. She said, "I said we're going to use Jayne Kennedy." And yeah, she did. And so when I got there and she told me this, I said, "Oh, Marla," I said, "You're amazing." Because, I had no idea that that's how I got the job. But, it was Marla Gibb. And it takes those kind of people because in those times, no one would be willing to share information because the industry was too small. You had maybe one job in 5 years. And they would tell you, you can only be an actress. If you try to do something else, they won't think of you as an actress anymore. So I just ignored that. I was a singer. I was a dancer. I toured with Bob Hope. I toured with Dean Martin. I met these amazing people because these were job opportunities. And I didn't care. I didn't want to be just an actress. I wanted to work because I wanted not to be known, but I wanted to work so that I could feel good about myself. And people ask me all the time, "Well, what does it feel like to be a star?" I don't know. because that was never who I wanted to be. My goal was to do my best work that I possibly could. And building experiences and relationships with people in the industry was the way to make that happen.
You definitely get a sense of that in the book. The community that you created, the way that you and Leon was so intentional about networking to make sure you had those opportunities. But we have to acknowledge too, and this is something that you write about, that there were just so many isms that you had to deal with, from racism to sexism to
Absolutely.
colorism as a part of this. And it's not all glitz and glamour. You've had your share of very difficult times and scandals. I wonder if you wanted to share with our audience at least one of those instances that you write about in the book. Tell us about it and tell us how you survived it.
Well, when CBS fired me, that was a dagger in the heart, because I loved working on the NFL Today. And CBS decided that they didn't want me on the desk anymore, did not tell me. Here I am, I've been with them for 2 years. And when they first signed me, gosh, okay, should I go back to the beginning of this story? Okay, huh? Tell it? Okay. So I hear that you're going to have to remind me to answer the question, because this is a twisty turny story. So when I heard that they were looking for someone to sit on the NFL Today desk to replace Phyllis George, and I knew I could do this job because I love sports. I knew so many of the players, so this was going to be an easy. All I had, and I've done television and I've done live television, so it wasn't like this was a new experience for me. Certain parts of it was, but not to be able to work and learn as a process of work. That was what I always did, and I was good at that. And so here I am trying to get on the NFL Today, and my agent would not submit me. And I said, I know I can do this job. He said, well, they're not looking for someone like you. And the you was that I was Black. So he submitted a list of 10 women. They all got turned down. Second time, I begged to be on the list. 10 got submitted, 10 turned down. And again, the third time, same thing. And I said, you know what, this isn't going to happen. So Leon and I had always been people that, we'll find another way. So we ended up calling Jim Brown from the Cleveland Browns. We said, hey, we told him what we wanted. And he said, well, I think you should talk to Bob Stenner, who's a field producer for CBS. And Bob Stenner said, well, I don't really know much about that. You should talk to George Wallach. George Wallach was managing Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner. And so anyway, I talked to Bruce and he said, I think you'd be great for this job. He said, but if you get the job, I want to be your manager. I said, I don't got a problem with that. I just want to get the job, right? So he said the head of talent was coming to Los Angeles next week. He scheduled a meeting. I meet with her. She says, I think you'd be fabulous. I'm taking you to New York right now. So we get on the plane, we go to New York, and true to everybody else, they weren't looking for someone like me. There were 16 girls at the audition that they had called the greatest talent hunt since Scarlett O'Hara. And they had all 15 of these girls were blonde and white. And they did not look for someone like me. And so again, I just kicked back and I said, I'm just gonna be me. I'm not gonna try to impress anybody. I'm just gonna be me. They go through all the audition process, they get to me, and after my interview, Brent Musburger stood up and said, it's Jayne or nobody. And he left the room. There were still 3 other girls to be interviewed. He never interviewed with them. He said, it's Jayne or nobody. So they all agreed with Brent, the president, the producer, the director, but they still were not going to agree to hire me because they were afraid of what the Southern affiliates would do. They were afraid that they would pull their programming and they would no longer broadcast CBS product. So they said, well, what we have to do is send the audition tape to the Southern affiliates and see what they say. They all agreed. Jayne is the one for the job, but how are we going to fix this problem? We cannot have 2 Blacks on the desk and 1 white.
Wow.
Irv Cross, me and Irv Cross. And the idea came up, what if we have Jimmy the Greek, who's already on the show, doing predictions, put him on the desk. Then you have 2 whites and 2 blacks on the desk. And that's how I got hired. But they only gave me 6-week contract. And again, I had to fight tooth and nail to try to land the job, more than 6 weeks. Second week, I'm living in LA, go to New York, working in New York, and then I fly back. That was the routine every Friday night, every Sunday night. So my second week, I get there a day early, and I'm working for CBS Sports, but Sports Spectacular is right next door. And I overhear the team at Sports Spectacular shouting and screaming, how are we going to be the only broadcast network that does not have a post-fight interview with Muhammad Ali when he fights Leon Spinks in Louisiana? What's the city name? New Orleans. That just skipped my mind. Yeah. So anyway, they're screaming and yelling. They said, we got to do this. We're all getting fired. So I turned around, I put my hand up in the air and I said, I can get you the interview. And they looked at me like, who are you? I said, I'm the girl that can get you the interview. And so I said, you put me on a private jet, I'll go down, get the interview, and I'll have it back for you Saturday morning in time for your show on Saturday afternoon. I have no idea why they believe me. They put me on a private jet. They put me on a private jet, sent me to New Orleans. Ali said that he would leave a key for me at his suite, meet him there, and he would go there before he did the interviews for ABC News. And so here I am, sitting in the suite, and I'm praying, Ali, please walk through the door. Please walk through the door. And in he walks. And he walked right up to the camera, and he punched the lens, and he said, I'd only do this for my friend Jayne Kennedy. And so I went back to New York, gave the piece to Sports Spectacular on Saturday. On Sunday, they cut a clip for me to do on the NFL Today. And then on Monday, I've gone home Sunday night. Monday, I'm just dragged. I'm so tired. The phone rings at 10 a.m. I pick up the phone. Hello, Jayne Kennedy? I said, yes. He said, we picked up your contract for the rest of the year.
So that's how it started.
Connections.
You talked about all of that hard work, all of the deliverables, and then they turn around and they fire you. You said it's one of the lowest moments of your professional career.
2 years later.
Talk about what that was like, and tell us more importantly how you got through it.
It was horrible because the way they did it was so sly and sneaky, as usual. Yeah. And I thought I still had a job. And I'm doing the Super Bowl in 1980. That was my dream. I watched the Super Bowl, the very first Super Bowl, with my father, and the quarterback sneak in the end zone won. And I've never forgotten that. And I said, this is my dream. This is my place. I was meant to be here. And here I am on the helicopter. They put me in a helicopter circling the stadiums. And they kept saying, we're going to throw the next segment to Phyllis George in the gingerbread house. And I'm going, why? She's not on the show, and she's with her husband, John Y. Brown. Why are we throwing it to Phyllis George? They don't have anything to do with this broadcast. My piece gets bumped, and we're throwing to Phyllis George. And so twice it happened. The helicopter swoops down into the opening door, the gates of the Rose Bowl, and as it lands, I jump out, and the first person I see is Irv Cross, and he expected me, so something was up. He's standing there, and I jump off, and I'm angry, and he grabs me, and he said, "It's too late, Jayne. There's nothing you can do." I'm going, "What's too late? What are you talking about?" I said, "Why did my pieces get bumped?" "It's too late, Jayne. There's nothing you can do." And I said, I had no idea what was happening. So I had to go up and do the halftime show. And at the end of the halftime show, I said to Brent, "Don't ever trick me like that again." And then I get off the show, and nobody tells me anything still. That was February. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Nobody told me anything that I had been fired. They had already made a deal with Phyllis in December. She had asked to return the show, and nobody told me. And in the reporters, they said, everybody knew Jayne was fired except Jayne. And when they fired me the first time, they said, "You can't do 2 shows," because I had signed on to do a show for NBC. And NBC had promised to CBS that they would have first right of refusal of my services. And I had the president of CBS sign that approval that I could work for NBC. So when they fired me, they said, she's fired because she breached her contract and worked for a different network. I said, "No, I didn't. Here's the paperwork signed by your president." They hired me back. A few weeks later, I get fired again. This time, you can't do that much work. You have to be, you're living in LA, you have to be in New York, you have to leave Friday night, you're going to be taping the show at NBC on Friday night. And I said, I can do that work. I'm working 1 night a week in Los Angeles, Friday night, get on the plane like I usually do and come to CBS and do my CBS show and go back. But Brent Musburger at that time is doing 5 nights a week on the CBS News in Los Angeles. And he has to get on the same plane as me every Friday night, go to New York, same plane every Sunday night, come back. And I said, so why is it that a man can do it and a woman can't? So then I hired Gloria Allred. And they didn't have anything else to say. So, but I still didn't get my job. They paid me off for the year and I was gone. And it wasn't until months and months later that I found out that they had already hired Phyllis George and nobody told me. So I did a special, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. Okay. I did, 2 years ago, I did a special for NFL Films, and it was ran pre-Super Bowl 2 years ago. And they asked me if I would be, as the only 2 surviving members, me and Brent Musburger, if we would be part of this pregame special. And of course I said yes. And I said, but I'm going to be honest, because everybody thought that I had breached my contract. And I said, this will be my opportunity to tell my story finally. And so I said, I said, they're going to edit it anyway, but I'm just going to tell my story. And I did. And so when it came on TV, they actually left it in. They left it in that that's how I got fired. And I was just shocked. I had no idea. But that was probably the gracious thing for them to do. But it didn't take away the sting.
All these years later, still
No,
hurts.
Still hurts. I had people telling me, that this was something that was special for them. African American people were telling me this was special for them. The Chicago Defender said Jayne should have kept that job if she had to kiss ass, because that door opened for all these other women to follow, and she had to stay there, and she turned them down. I did not turn them down because I knew that that was a door that was open for women. And I knew that it was important. Bob Johnson at Jet Magazine and Ebony Magazine, John Johnson at Jet Magazine and Ebony Magazine, they were all in my corner. I was doing, and the ratings were higher than they'd ever been. So why are they dealing with me like this? So, there's a lot more that's in the book, but it was just devastating.
And that's just one of a few.
Yes.
I think we won't get into it now. We're going to open the floor for audience questions. But before there was a Kim Kardashian, there was a Jayne Kennedy. People can read about that and how you dealt with that scandal and came out on the other side. I just want to thank you so much for being so honest. There's so many lessons and so much inspiration, not only in the book, but in just being with you and having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being willing to come. Thank you for being willing to share.
I also want to say something, when we look at Hollywood today and we see how many women are in positions where they can actually do the work that they love, and see how many African-American men who can do the work that they actually love. And the doors have opened up so much, but we're still dealing with, trying to struggle to get the foot forward. We still have Viola Davis not making equal pay. I remember the day that I first got equal pay to a white woman, and it was when I did a Jovan commercial, and I couldn't believe it. I had been working for almost 15 years, and finally I'd gotten paid the same thing as the white counterpart. And so we still have that struggle today. We still have Black women who are talking about they can't even get in the door. We still have people that are saying, why are we feeling like the industry doesn't want us? And there's an actress that received an award a couple of years ago, and she was saying that from now on, and she's a producer and well known, she said, from now on, whenever I do my projects this year, I'm going to make sure that Black women are behind the scenes and in front of the camera. You know what I heard? Projects with an S. Because back in the day, you didn't get projects. You maybe got one every 5 years. And so that's why I was struggling so hard. That's why I was teaching. That's why I was opening doors for others to follow in my footsteps. I did a TNT special, and they had me, Pam Oliver, and Tyler, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out with the names. Stephanie Reddy and Taylor Rooks. And we were talking about the generational evolution of women in sports, Black women in sports. And when we got to the youngest one, she said, I had no idea any of those things existed. So we cannot let our legacy slip away. That's why this book is written. We cannot afford to let our legacy slip away. Taylor Rooks had no idea of the struggles that Pam Oliver and I had to suffer. She's thinking, I can just go get any job that I want. All I have to do is be great. It wasn't always that way. Sorry.
No apologies. The people came for you. So, but with that, we do want to offer an opportunity for a couple of questions before we go out, and Ms. Kennedy will sign any books that are unsigned that you've purchased this evening. So I do invite you forward. There's a microphone here and a microphone here. There are a few ground rules. Please make sure that your question takes the form of a question. We can do quick comments, no stories. Don't make me be the enforcer, so you've been warned. Any questions from the audience? Any comment from the audience for Ms. Kennedy? All right. You have to come to the microphone.
While we're waiting, I also want to say, that I'm building this legacy for my children. People say, why now? Which is the first question you ask. But, I felt that I hadn't finished. And so I had to come back, and I had to make sure. which is not easy and which most likely would not have happened. So I feel blessed that God gave me this second opportunity. But it was because of my girls that I wanted to be able to leave this legacy that they can go forward and people would no longer be saying, turning around, the young people would not be saying, who's she? Yes.
Yes, you have a question?
I was going to say, it's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Of all your many accomplishments, if you had to isolate the one that you're most proud of, what would it be?
It would have to be birthing my children. I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but that would be number one. I'll give you a number two. But my daughters mean the world to me, and they support me 100,000%. And their friends support me, and they all call me Mama Jayne. And when on those 30 years as I was away, here I was as a soccer mom, a tennis mom, a swim mom, and all their friends call me Mama Jayne. There's like 50 girls out there that are playing soccer on scholarships that I helped them to get. And the day that they realized Jayne Kennedy was Mama Jayne was a real surprise to them. And I also have to tell you that day that we were riding home from after picking up the girls after school, and we were going down the crazy busy street, and all of a sudden we hear on the radio, man, she was so fine. She word to my mother, man. She looked just like Jayne Kennedy. And I slammed on the brakes. I said, what? Copper said, did he just call your name, Mommy? And Zaire said, why is he saying your name on the radio, Mommy? And Savannah says, Mommy, you got street cred.
I know that song. That's Most Def. Yes, they were calling you. Icon status. Is there another question or comment?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Looking at your journey, the journey that you've had through Hollywood, through the lessons that you've learned, what is the one thing that you want the readers to take away as a journey lesson?
I shouldn't answer so quickly. I should give it some thought. But this is really my reason for doing all of this. I want African American women to know that you don't have to be defined, that you are masters of your own journey, that you can do anything that you try to do if you believe that you can. And I want Black men to know that they can do anything that they want, because there are so many doors that are closed in our face all the time. There will always be. Present day, there is. There's so much wrong. I don't even want to get into what I think about where this country is today, because then we're talking about another hour and a half.
Sure.
But we cannot let our legacy go down the drain. In the book, in the final section, well, first is Jayne Kennedy, then I'm Jane Harrison, Jayne Kennedy, Jane Overton, and then playing Jane. And then I realized I was into overtime. So I'm playing my football and I'm in overtime. So, but if you watch the movie Amistad, one of the lessons there is that no matter where you are in life, you have to keep going forward because you owe it to your ancestors. And and he said, Sin-Q said, it is upon their shoulders that I stand, and it is because of them that I cannot continue, that I cannot not continue to walk forward. And that's a lesson that we all need to know. And I know that everyone feels that, but that's a lesson that you have to remember every day you get up, every day you talk to a young person. Our young people really, I'm very concerned because I see people, and I walked into a coffee shop. There was 25 people in there. None of them talked to each other. They were all on their iPhones. And I was there for 25 minutes, and no one spoke to each other for 25 minutes. And we've got to worry about that in this country today. We've got so many things to worry about. I keep reading and I stop reading because it just hurts so much. My daughters have less agency over their bodies than I did. That's the craziest thing. I never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought that I would have been worrying about my daughter's rights. I fought for I'm from the 70s. I'm a child of the 60s. I saw the Watts riots. I saw assassinations, Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King, the other Kennedy, Malcolm. I saw all of this. I saw burn your draft card, burn your bra. I saw all of that. And that's what made me strong. And I refuse to not share whatever knowledge that I have so that others will not have to suffer.
Excellent. Thank you, Sora.
Powerful words. Well, as we wrap here, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about what's next for you. I know there's a lot going on, but you also are launching a new initiative. We have a slide that we were asked to put up to share. Talk to us about
Yes.
Sun and Moon.
I created with a fragrance designer a product called Sun and Moon, and it's a fragrance that is 100% organic. And even the bottle's cap is organic. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that when you have an opportunity, you don't do it half-ass. You go all the way. So if I'm doing all this PR for Plain Jane, why not release the fragrance at the same time? But you can get it at JayneKennedy.com. And that's the only way you can get it for now. But we're just in pre-sales right now. But for February, for Valentine's Day, we will have our full-blown campaign up. Yes, I let her test it yesterday.
What does it smell like? Can you describe the two fragrances and the profiles?
I can, yes. Can you? Okay. Well, the designer that I worked with, we sat for a couple of hours and we talked about who I was and what people would expect from me. So you have the first time that I set foot in Africa, I was visiting Egypt. I landed in Cairo, and we were not close to the gate, so we were on the tarmac, walked down the steps, and the very first moment that my foot touched the ground, I could feel the roots spring through the ground, and I was in the motherland. The very first time I have ever felt at home. I've never forgotten that feeling. I've never forgot waking up and hearing the music in the morning, the singing, the prayers, all the things that I saw in my trip to Africa. I've never forgotten that. So we now have frankincense, we have myrrh, and we have African opal, because opal is my birthstone, as part of the ingredients in the fragrance. My mom grew up on a tobacco farm, so we have tobacco leaves in the fragrance. It's a very earthy fragrance, and it can be used for men or women. So I just love it because it's not a long lasting, because it's all earthy and it's 100% organic. So you can buy 2 or 3 at a time. But the opal is in with 24 karat gold flakes in the bottles. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So the bottles we have now, because of the tariffs, are not the bottles that we will have in February, but you can get it at JayneKennedy.com.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Best of luck with your new venture.
Thank you.
Everyone, round of applause, please, for Miss Jayne Kennedy Overton.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, we want to thank everyone for being here. Again, I want to thank Pyramid Books for their partnership. I want to thank the Friends of AARLCC. If you want to find out more about our upcoming events, please visit our website. You can type in AARLCC.broward.org. You can also search for us on Eventbrite and find a complete event listings. Next month, we'll have on the stage none other than Robert F. Smith, billionaire, who will be talking about his new book, Leading Boldly. And so we invite you to come back and be with us.